Okay, we're going to get started. I'm Elijah Dixon, and my partner, Dr. Jarnagin, really doesn't need any introduction. Everyone knows him. He's really an icon in the field.
We're not really partners, by the way, just to set the record straight.
So I know Bill reasonably well, and we're going to try to get you guys to know Bill a little bit better in the next half an hour. I'm going to go through some questions with him. We're going to sort of use the Inside the Actors studio format, but if anyone has questions, please come up and feel free to come to the microphone and ask a question, especially in the last 5 or 10 minutes. So, Bill, why don't we just start with can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your heritage, where you grew up, and maybe your family, your parents?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me just thank Chuck for asking me to do this. It's a real honor. A little nervous about it. I mean, I'm not sure. I just didn't know what to expect when I got the invitation, and I wasn't sure that getting to know me was something that too many people really wanted to do. But I grew up in Somerville, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. I'm the product of an immigrant family. My grandparents born, and my mother from Italy. I don't know, for people who know Boston, Somerville is a real working class kind of place. The place I grew up, a lot of triple-decker family homes, tons and tons of kids, sort of Catholic families, and where everyone kind of looked out for each other a bit, kind of like, like old neighborhoods in the Bronx or Brooklyn at the turn of the century. So it was a very comfortable childhood, a very comfortable upbringing of people who had to work hard for a living. So, and that's kind of the thing that kind of formed me quite a bit, growing up in that kind of place.
Okay. They say that geography is destiny. How has where you've lived over the course of your life formed and maybe made you the way that you are? And you're really, for someone of your sort of status, you're very approachable and not a lot of airs about you. So tell us how you got developed like that.
Well, I think it was a product of my family. I mean, it was a no-nonsense family, and everyone contributed to the work that needed to be done. It didn't matter your status in the family, but you helped out all the time. If you tried to shirk your responsibilities, you immediately felt the wrath of the old man. It's just you didn't put up with that kind of stuff. So that was the background, and that it was like yeah, that's great that you're important, but take out the garbage, okay?
Yeah.
I think that really was the way I was formed, the way that my parents raised me. So.
Okay. And when did medicine and surgery become something that you thought you wanted to do?
I think it was an evolution over time. So in the households that I grew up in, I grew up in like I said, in Somerville, where families were packed tight together. So my family lived on the bottom floor. My aunts and uncles lived next door, across the street. A lot of very strong women in my family, several nurses. So I was exposed to the medical field from an early time. I also spent a lot of time in emergency rooms as a kid with broken bones. So I got to see orthopedic surgery up close and personal as a kid. And then I think in like junior high school, it was at the time when I was first exposed to science from some very good teachers that I had, fortunate to have, and that kind of started the process of going into biology or that kind of a direction. Medicine came later, I guess. I went to college as a chemistry major, and I thought I was going to be like a research scientist, but I immediately found out that I wasn't as smart as the rest of the chemistry majors in my class, so maybe I should think about something else. So I started looking a little bit towards medicine as a career, and then things just fell into place from there.
Okay, and then when you went into medicine, was everything a possibility, or you knew surgery right from the outset, or you had an epiphany when you were...
Yeah, no, surgery was not a given at all. I had no role models in surgery or medicine for that matter, so I mean, my first rotation was actually an internal medicine rotation on the bone marrow transplant unit, which I was fascinated by, but I think the first time I wanted to go as a medical student to the operating room, and we had senior student mentors who took us around to show us different parts of the hospital, and they took me in and I saw an open cholecystectomy for the first time, and I thought, okay, this is what I want to do.
Okay.
Not cholecystectomies necessarily, but
surgery.
Surgery.
And you touched on it, so mentors. Have mentors been a big part of your surgical career, and if so, who and how?
Right. So I think two people that I need to mention. One is a man named William Schechter, Bill Schechter, who just recently retired as the chair at San Francisco General. He was a great doctor, first of all, and he would always say that first of all, I'm a doctor, I'm a surgeon second, that's how I help people. He was a real humanitarian. He was a giant, truly, and he could do everything from major chest trauma to hand surgery to parathyroids, and he did them all well. And he frequently gave of himself going on humanitarian outreach programs around the world, particularly to the Middle East, Israel, to refugee camps. Just a great human being. He just taught us so much about what it is to be a doctor, because above all, that's what we are. And then Les Blumgart, of course, after that, who kind of took my sort of raw surgical sort of training and kind of formed me into polished me into a HPB surgeon, and really gave me the opportunities to do what I wanted to do. So I think those two really are the people who I think helped me become what I am professionally.
And when you're operating, especially if you're doing a difficult case or doing something that's hard, do you hear one of those mentors or someone else in your head sometimes talking to you or telling you what to do or not to do?
Yeah, I do. I hear Blumgart all the time. He had one of his favorite expressions was "rush slowly," especially when you had a tough problem that you were facing, something unexpected. And it's the sort of thing that stuck with me. Like, for example, if you're all of a sudden run into some major bleeding that you weren't expected, the first reaction is to want to put a stitch into it or start putting clamps on things. And he would always stop you and say, "Look, just wait. You're going to make things worse. Just try to." So that kind of thinking, I think, is a big part of the way I do my surgery.
Okay. What do you think three important traits are that every surgeon, and especially every HPB surgeon, should have?
Three traits. Well, I think as surgeons, no matter what specialty you're in, I mean, technical excellence, is I mean, that's like jacks are better, right? You need a pair of jacks just to get in the game, and as a surgeon, that's your pair of jacks. If you don't have that, you shouldn't be a surgeon. You need technical excellence. That's not to say that you have to be a technical whiz, because I've known some great surgeons who, when you look at them more closely and how they're doing operations, aren't necessarily the smoothest operators that you've ever seen.
Yep.
But it's the way they conduct the operation and kind of envision going from point A to point B. But you need that. You need to be an excellent doctor. You need to. I think one of the best parts of my job is talking to people about not having an operation, or why I wouldn't operate on you. Having that kind of good judgment, and I think you need humanitarian skills, compassion for your fellow man, to want to have that instinct to want to help people. I think those are the three top things I would list.
Okay. And if you sort of look at the different generations, baby boomer, Generation X, millennials, and as you sort of go through, different generations have, in a global sort of way, strengths and maybe some weaknesses. What if your daughter was going into surgery right now, what would you say the blind spot might be for people that are training, now and into the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I look at my kids and their friends and that generation, and they're definitely much more focused on immediacy of things. Look, we have to do this now. I want it now. Communicate now. We need an immediate reaction. It's not to say that they don't have the long view necessarily, but I wonder if many of them have. I mean, you know what it takes to become a surgeon. It's a long haul, and if you don't have the love for it, it's going to be tough. And I think I don't know. I worry about that in some of them. They're looking for more of a quick sort of reward kind of thing, and I don't know. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Especially with my daughters.
So if we were sitting here 25 years ago, it would have been hard to predict, I think, what liver and pancreas surgery would look like today and how it is today. What do you think about the future of liver surgery? Is it a bright future? Is it going to be more common, less common? What should people be looking at?
Right. Well, that's a good question. I mean, in a lot of ways, if you come to these meetings long enough, you start hearing the same debates over and over again, with no progress being made in some areas. So part of me is tempted to say maybe not a lot is going to change. But I think actually things are going to change a lot. I think the field, the science in general is poised to make some tremendous breakthroughs in molecular biology and how we characterize diseases and ultimately how we treat them. I think the advances that are coming are going to particularly in immunotherapy, molecular therapies are going to truly change the face of cancer treatments, and haven't done so yet in pancreas. We haven't made many inroads, but I think those are coming, and I think it's going to lead to surgeons probably treating more patients, making more patients eligible for an operation potentially, and I think the same is probably true for liver surgery. I think we'll probably still be having the same debate about laparoscopic versus robotic. I'm not sure that's going to change a lot in the next several years, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay. Do you have one or two favorite or important moments in your career so far?
Important how?
Just important to you as in the development of your career and personally.
Okay. Yeah, I can point to the very first operation I did as an intern, as setting the stage for the next several years of my life, as painful as it was. But I was an intern at UCSF at the San Francisco VA, and for those of you who've ever been there, San Francisco VA sits on one of the most beautiful pieces of land in probably the United States, right up on a hill overlooking the Marin Headlands, the Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, it's spectacular. But it was the most toxic, horrible place to work as a resident. And the first day I showed up, I was basically there for 3 straight days. They put me on call and they wouldn't let me go. Yeah. I should have had a clue then what was coming. But the first patient that I operated on was, and I'll remember his name for the rest of my life. He was a clergyman in San Francisco, and he came in with what we thought was a acute appendicitis. I examined him at 3 in the morning, called the chief resident, said, I think he has appendicitis. He's like, yeah, okay, we'll come in. We had a big OR day planned. He's like, we got to get this done before so that anesthesiologists don't cancel our, whatever case we had on later in the day. He comes in, examines him, agrees, we go to the OR, take it out. He's beating on me continuously during the whole thing. But it turned out he didn't have appendicitis. He had actually, diverticulitis, and he had a periappendicitis, mimicking that diagnosis. So we took his appendix out, which was inflamed, but it was from the outside in rather than the inside out. And he developed one of the worst cases of necrotizing fasciitis I've ever seen prior to that time or since. And it just, and he ended up in the ICU, just like one complication after another. And so every day for 2 months, rounding on him was just a reminder of, and of course, then, especially, complications were, you were berated for any complications, and this was just a reminder of my failure as a doctor and a surgeon, and even though we did the best we could with the information we had, but it just reminded me of the decisions you make as a doctor and a surgeon have profound effects on your patients. So that was the first of many many such examples, unfortunately.
Do you think it changed you in a tangible way?
Yeah, it just, I mean, I never wanted to, I mean, no one likes to have complications, but it just made me want to do almost anything that I could possibly do to avoid a complication. I mean, it just, it definitely made me much more, I don't know, much more vigilant, I guess, and it's still a lesson that I carry today. I mean, we're always going to have complications, but that just really made me want to really do almost anything I could to not be in that situation again.
Okay. What frustrates you at work and outside of work?
What frustrates me at work is people not doing their job. I mean, we have a tough thing that we do in taking care of sick patients, in my case, cancer patients, and you invest a lot of time and energy, and when things, when something needs to be done, and it's something that you need someone else to do, and they're not doing it, it just gets me very angry. And I don't want to mention, GI or interventional radiology by name, but
we can all relate. Okay. What's the favorite part of your day?
Favorite part of my day is waking up.
Really?
It is.
After coffee, or as soon as you wake up, you're good to go?
I love getting up early, and my wife and I have a routine. We sit down, we do some work. I love being up early. It makes me feel, and sending emails to people I know who are sleeping. It makes me feel like
shot across the bow.
That's right.
Okay. Do you have an embarrassing moment that you can share with us?
Oh yeah, I do. Shiva's in the room, and he was part of this embarrassing moment. But this had to do with an operation that I had done on myself. I had a pilonidal cyst for years, and it was getting to be a problem, just draining a lot and all this. So I had one of my colleagues at the hospital, Marty Weiser, a colorectal surgeon, take it out one day. So on a Saturday, at the end of the day, we went to, took me to the OR and opened this thing up and excised it. And so I wake up in the recovery room, and being a surgeon, I immediately jump out of the gurney and say, I'm leaving. And the nurses are like, no, come on, just relax. And then they call Weiser down. He tries to get me to stay overnight. He's like, it's a big defect, you're going to need to do all dressing changes and this and that.
You followed orders, of course.
I said, don't worry, we'll be fine. I said, my wife can do it. She's good at that, My wife is totally not medical at all. So eventually go home. It's a Saturday in the summertime. It's kind of quiet. And, we have dinner and go to bed early. And in the middle of the night, this thing starts to bleed. And so I get up, lying on the bedroom floor. I have a bag of like Curlexes and other lap pads and things. I tell my wife, you have to take it off. And she's like, it's just so much blood there. She took it off, and she showed me it was really, it was a lot of blood. And she's
That's
crying.
saying something coming from the liver surgeon.
So I'm like, open these things up and just put it in there and just put your fist in and hold it. And she's like, I can't do that. So finally get it to stop and go to bed and wake up at like 7 o'clock Sunday morning, and it starts bleeding again. I called Weiser up. I said, you got to get over here. We got to go to the hospital and deal with this. And he had his kids for the weekend. I said, bring them over. I don't care. Laura can look at them, look after them, no problem. So she goes out and buys a box of Depends, because this thing is dripping blood. I was going to wear a pair of Depends to the hospital.
Wow.
And Shiv is the fellow at this time. This is July, and he's the brand new HPV fellow. And we call him down. I'm like, Shiva, go to the OR, get one of those electric Bovie things and a bunch of gauzes and get down here. He's like, what's going on? I said, you'll find out. And he walks into the ER bay, And there I am, buck naked. With
Blood
big-
everywhere.
Yeah. And he's like, this will be a funny story someday. I'm like, yeah, I know. If you tell it before it's ready to be told, you'll be fired. But, so.
That's a good one. How do you struggle with work-life balance
Yes.
and what are the things you do to try and maintain some work-life balance?
It's a good question. My life is not well balanced. Work dominates, unfortunately, and I struggle with it. I don't know the answer. I mean, I try to do things out of sight of my wife and kids. So, like on the weekends, I'll, if I'm going to talk to the fellow, I'll go to the other room, or I'll go walk the dog and make the calls then, so that they don't have to hear about work and things like that. I'll maybe do some work on the computer after they're asleep, but you really have to make a huge effort to try and shut it off. I don't think I can shut it off completely. I don't know how others manage it, but my phone's always on. I'm always reachable, and I feel I need to be like that. I mean, maybe others disagree, but I don't think I can do what I do and not be available, most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are times when I can't possibly be there, but that just drives me crazy.
Yeah. If you have a chunk of time, like yesterday, Will talked about going out with his dogs and hunting. Is there something that resets things for you? Like if you have more time, you can get away and do something, or?
Yeah, we have a house in Maine, and being up there is a lot of fun. Going to the beach, being in the ocean, that's really the most relaxing thing that I do. Being with, when my daughters were younger, especially being with them, going surfing.
Yeah.
That's really the best thing. I can't get there too often.
Yeah.
In New York City, the best thing I can do is go to the gym, exercise, sit in the steam room for a little while, and then take a nap.
Yeah. So it sounds like Boston and New York are your two anchor points. If you have to pick in terms of professional hockey teams, the Bruins or the Islanders or the Rangers, is there any question?
I can't believe you would even ask. And anyone from Boston would say the same thing. I mean, when you grow up there, you are a fan of the sports teams, and that is it. You don't root against the Celtics or the Red Sox. You just don't.
Okay.
And that continues even if you leave and move away.
Okay.
So.
And is that same sort of argument follows with all-time greatest quarterback Brady in Montana?
Well, we can talk about the numbers if you want. I mean, I think it proves pretty clearly who's the best.
Okay. If you weren't doing surgery, anything else you'd like to do or wish you were doing?
I mean, I've never thought about it very much because I'm not I'm not a very religious or spiritual person, but I do believe that this is what I was meant to do, and I loved my job really more than anything, except my family, of course. I mean, it's really what I love to do. So, if someone said, "Okay, you're done. What are you going to do next?" I would struggle. I would struggle with that. I'm not sure what I would do.
Okay. A few quick snappers. Favorite operation?
I don't really have one, to be honest. I mean, I like doing them all. Any operation that goes smoothly and fixes a big problem for a patient, is something that I like.
Okay. Favorite instrument in the OR?
Suction.
Is there a least favorite instrument? The fellow asks for something and you want to throw it off?
No, I don't. Not a least favorite instrument, I guess. It depends on who's using.
Okay.
Well, when the fellows start trying to use the suction instead of me, then I have to step in and say, that's mine. You just back off.
So you in the OR, you own the suction, okay. Favorite word?
Favorite word? I don't know my favorite word. Cure.
Okay. Sound or noise that you love to hear?
My favorite sound is hearing babies laugh. It's like the funniest thing. I love hearing that.
Okay. Sound or noise that you hate?
Horns honking.
Okay. Okay. It's a problem in New York.
It's a problem.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you pull up to the pearly gates?
You're in. Welcome. Have a seat. You're in.
Awesome. Favorite curse word?
I would definitely like the F-bomb. You know, well-placed F-bomb is really good.
Okay. What music do you listen to in the OR? Or do you listen to music?
No, I don't. I mean, it's not that I don't like listening to music, but this happened early on in my career, and I was young attending, and they had music on, and I saw the circulating nurses kind of like dancing to the music rather than paying attention to what was happening, and I'm like, you know what, this is not good. So, we listen to music like on Saturdays or like late at night or to keep me awake, but otherwise no.
Okay. What's it like to operate with Professor Jarnagin?
I have no idea. I don't know.
It sounds like they like it. I talked to a few of the fellows, and they all say they fight for your cases, and they look forward to rotating with you.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I think they like it.
Lots of autonomy, they say.
We do good cases. Yeah. They get some autonomy. Try to keep the atmosphere a little bit loose. I mean, I don't think it's great to have a sort of overbearing, kind of atmosphere in the operating room. So, and we do good cases. So I think that kind of attracts people. So.
Okay. If there's any questions, feel free to come up just in the last minute or two here. What is there a best surgeon that you've seen operate, or that you've spent time with, or is there more than one?
The best technical surgeon I remember operating with was Nancy Asher at UCSF. Tremendously skilled technician. I mean, just really good. I'll never forget. But I don't know if you know her.
No.
Very strong personality, and talk about using F-bombs. I mean, she was unbelievable. But I mean, she was also could be very gentle and very nice at times. And I mean, she taking me through a kidney transplant as a second-year resident, and I was, doing the arterial anastomosis, and she was very nice and sweet. But then when it came time to tying the Prolian, she looked at me and said, "If you break this stitch, I'll fucking kill you." And she would have. But hands down, the best technical surgeon. Another one is that I can remember is Dr. O'Reilly, vascular surgeon, a woman vascular surgeon at UCSF, one of the first women to complete the training at Linda Riley at Johns Hopkins, another superb technician. So interesting that they're both women.
Yeah.
And a good thing.
Excellent. Anything else important that I didn't ask you that you want to talk about?
I remember my first operation really as an attending, but without anyone more senior in the room. And this was also as a resident, because we did get some autonomy there. And it was I was a second-year resident, again, at the VA hospital in San Francisco. And I was taking the intern through an inguinal hernia repair while the chief resident was doing some huge vascular case in the other room. And I remember the night before telling him, "Look, I'm not sure I'm ready to do this." And he said, "You're ready." He's like, "Because I'm not coming in there. You're doing it yourself." And I was petrified. Because there was, that mantle of responsibility is now on your head. I remember my first two cases as an attending, because I was Dr. Bloomgard's fellow in June at the end of my training. So on June 30th, I went from his fellow to July 1st being his junior partner, which is exactly the same thing. And he had 2 liver resections for me. One was in a woman who had a big hemangioma that had been embolized several times by radiologists, and so she had chronic pain, and we took that out. And she had even worse pain afterwards, so I never forgave him for that case.
That's great. We're with 30 minutes. I don't want to cut into Sean's time. Thanks for opening up for us today. Really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thanks. That was good.